I'm not a lady. I don't need a lady chaser for a lady shot of lady drink.
It's not a chaser,
lady dick.
It's a mixer.
It's a mixer. I hardly knew her. Cheers. Yeah, Sunday. Have I showed you that clip of the guy being like, hey Phil,
Yes.
Saturdays are for the Sunday fun Saturdays. Someone posted...
That's you. That's me. That's me trying to get you to respond to anything after a few margaritas.
Saturdays. No, I think it's funny that I was looking that up and I was like, who are these people? Because I've seen this clip everywhere. And they have no social media, no nothing, but it's just Saturday.
Do they even know that they're famous?
I don't think so. I think it was just something that some guy uploaded to his story and became like instantly famous. I know that speaking of instantly famous, you listened to a very special emergency episode of Advisory Opinions.
Yes.
On a network that we will not plug, talking about the Trump indictment. I don't know why it's not pronounced indictment. How is CT-ite?
Well, no, it's indictment, but through pronunciation, you often lose those consonant clusters.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, like, God, I can't come up with another example immediately.
Yeah, I can't think of another thing that has the CT.
Well,
But the
if
C
it's at
is
the
silent.
end, if it's at the end, like the past tense of picked, right? The kt
Yeah.
is a normal thing to have in English, but when it's word medial, that's when you lose some of that distinction.
Sound.
Yes.
It just sort of runs together.
Well, because you're saying a word. Like, stuff in the middle often gets shortened. And this is a phonetician who knows what he's talking about. So,
Speaking of things that run together, apparently these charges...
relationships?
No. Apparently these charges are, according to Sarah Isgur Gonzalez and David German.
Do you want me to explain what they were saying?
Yeah,
So,
what's the thesis of what they were saying? Because we discussed it on the past episode, and I said this sounds like a lot of bupkis.
right, and so literally right after that, they published that,
Yeah.
or they posted that emergency podcast.
Do you think
so I
that they
listened
listen to us the way that we listen to
Absolutely.
them? Because
Absolutely.
let's be honest, they have tens of listeners, and they probably look up them. They probably search themselves very strongly. So
But have we actually mentioned them in any of the
no, because I don't want to give them any promo.
Right.
It's never been in any of the descriptions of
Right.
any of the episodes we've ever recorded.
Anyway, yeah, so they posted that episode right after we recorded ours. So we had the discussion. They discussed something that was quite interesting because I didn't process it this way. So in the indictment, there is a transcript of, I think it's an audio recording of Trump talking to a writer who was writing about, and I don't remember the specific topic, but the point is,
His memoirs.
something. And so Trump showed the writer a document that he should not have, I believe about possibly going to war with Iran or something like that. But it wasn't like a, hey, here, read this. It was like a, oh yeah, I mean, I have the documents right here type thing.
But I can't show you.
But the thing is, the thing that Sarah says kind of kicks himself in the ass is that on this recording he is heard saying, I know if I were still president, I could declassify this and show it to you and be fine, but I can't declassify it anymore, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. So he's literally saying, I know that I'm committing a crime, but I'm going to do it anyway.
And this is where Washington speak and Trump speak differ. Because I think that their conception of him is like a Bond villain or something, where they think that he is, what was the phrase, you don't take him literally, but you take him seriously. They take him literally, but not seriously. I do not think that, I think that, I don't think that he's saying, I'm going to commit a crime and here's how I'm going to commit it. I don't think that he's that kind of person. I don't think there's ever been any evidence of that. I think, however, he has a writer there. He wants to, give him a little of the riz.
Right.
And he says, hey, look, this is the kind of stuff that they were doing when I was president. I have a document. This was classified and everything like this. Like, I'm not even supposed to have this. I genuinely, anything he had, he could just say, this is declassified while he was president. He doesn't have to stuff it into a banker's box and take it out of the White House with him. So that's where it's like, it's going to be so funny if they hinge an entire case off of his hyperbole in a situation. It's like saying,
right? Because I don't think Trump is stupid enough, to take like an actual like war type document and like let someone read it.
Like here you go.
He probably kind of like flashed it like, hey, like this is really important shit, but didn't like give it to him or like let him look at it. And isn't this
the same person who they said that, remember when he showed up to a press conference with binders of stuff and they said there was printing on the first page of the stack of papers and all the rest of the papers were blank? And he used it for some kind of effect, like a prop, being like, look at all these pages and all these documents I found. And people are like, wait a second, this is an empty binder page. So he knows how to use a prop. It's a prop. I think that when they went and found things that had top secret or classified markings, they're going to hinge this on, well, he didn't declassify them as president. And something is going to say, well, I did. Or even if he just said it aloud at some point, this is declassified. And then there you go. You have no case. So they're just upset about the fact that he had documents they said you're not supposed to have, and he was like, well, fuck you, I can keep them. That's what this is coming down to.
But the thing is also that, and Sarah is right, when it comes to the law, you have to know that you're breaking a law, and sometimes the hardest part for lawyers to prove is that this person meant to do this.
Right, they did it specifically.
Right.
Not accidental.
Right, so him being on that recording saying, I know that I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, shows his mens rea, meaning he knew it was wrong, but he did it anyway.
Yeah.
So I understand that can be used very damagingly against him.
Yeah.
So their opinion was that this is pretty much an open and shut case. Like it's pretty obvious that he's going to get something from this.
Who recorded this conversation? Did they ever clear that up?
The thing is, I think
Secret
by
Service
law,
record?
No, I think the writer recorded it because he was like recording notes,
which they have to disclose. I am recording this conversation.
So Trump knew he was being recorded.
Okay, so he's not going to say on tape, I'm criming right now.
But he kind of did. That's the point. Well, no, he did, but I don't think he meant it that way. The thing is,
so they're literally going to prosecute him on the theatrics of a comment.
I think so. And that's
well. Then the darker conspiracy is they want him to be the nominee, so they're going to fake persecute him so that he can then be the nominee, even though they know that there's no case.
As much as I don't like to plug their stuff, this was a very, very good episode of their podcast because it was very informative and a very good conversation. And the biggest takeaway I had from their conversation was these are two never Trumpers. These are two self-proclaimed conservative Republican
for both elections. I think both of them, 2016 and 2020, are both like, I'm not voting for him. I don't care if he's the nominee. I'll vote for Big Jorgensen.
So both of them cannot stand him. They think he's, not the devil, but they think he's a terrible politician, like a terrible leader, all of that. But they said, both of them, not even just one, both of them said, we do understand that this is wildly unfair. Because Hillary Clinton was basically caught doing something very, very, very similar, not identical, but very, very, very similar to what they've caught Trump doing, and they let her go.
Right.
They didn't push it. They didn't prosecute. And, so for them to admit that, that they are playing political games and war games, if you will, with Trump's livelihood and the political future of our country, that's pretty big for two self-professed never Trumpers.
They're coming from the perspective almost of like, we didn't want to have to prosecute him, but we had to because it was so blatant. I think that's kind of also because for the Sims thing, it's a sort of like this big sigh of like, no one's above the rule of law. Like they don't seem gleeful. They don't seem like they're confident in this. They don't seem like there's something that it just seems very blasé. Like, well, I guess we can prosecute it. Like, I don't see the same energy I saw with the New York case, which is even, more specious when it comes to evidence and whatever. I think it all comes down to like the grab him by the pussy thing. There were people who listened to that comment and did not understand what he was saying, and it was a lot of people. I don't want to say it was the majority because he got elected, but I want to say that a lot of people heard that and said, "Listen to this. He is telling Billy Bush in a bus that he is used to committing sexual assault." Where most people would listen to that and reasonably say, this guy is talking about the actions of others. That there are women that react.
If he wanted to.
Yes. And they react differently around people who have wealth, power, status, influence, or have a celebrity name, something like that. Because the context of the conversation was Billy Bush was talking about dating, and it was like a cautionary tale about these are the women that you encounter when you have a notable name or a face from television or anything like that.
And he was not saying that he ever did that, but he was saying, I've had women basically give me the opportunity to do this.
Right. And when you see, the allegations and everything like that, like that they try to throw at him, like they make it sound like he's, drugged women and taken advantage of them and everything like that, when none of that's been the case. So I think it's a similar situation of there's a certain way, a certain business talk that people have kind of a very loose back and forth. And these people reading this are so autistic that they're reading it and being like, he's literally saying he's committing a crime. How stupid he is. And it's like, well, either he's a genius, either he's this genius mastermind, evil villain who's stolen billions of dollars and like trying to do this, or he's a big retard that's just sort of stumbled his way through and now he's going to lose. Neither of which are true. So it's like what is this weird caricature that they've created of this man that's very obvious to see what he's like.
The thing is, though, that it's very obvious. The fact that it's very obvious to never-Trumpers like David French and Sarah Isgur that this is a witch hunt. Right. This is literally a witch hunt, like, by definition. Anyone who supports Trump would call it that no matter what. But when people who don't support him are now saying that, this becomes a real wake-up call for what are we doing? Right. What are we allowing our government to do?
Right.
That is, yes, okay, we want the government to prosecute crimes or prosecute offenders, all of that stuff. We want people to be held, accountable. But you can't pick and choose who you hold accountable.
Right.
So the double standard and the hypocrisy of it all, this is just one more nail in the coffin toward our, and I've said this before, and I hate to be an alarmist and one of those people, but toward like a civil war. Whether it's, bloody or not. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing. I think that they understand that the rule of law is bendable. And no one on the right has understood that in any sense. Because the last time that something got this serious when it came to the rule of law and people on the right was the Clinton impeachment trial. And of course he was impeached but not removed from office. And it came down to a thing of perjury where he lied under oath. Right. And so the right sort of ran the cost of like, well, we don't really want to remove him from office. It would make us look bad. It would make it, the framing isn't good, so we're not going to push. They didn't convince enough people that was okay. And there was sort of a reason given of like, our norms, our rule of law, blah, 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 blah. This is like, we don't want to make it look like the people who went after Nixon and all that kind of stuff. And so there was a sort of hedge that was made. Whereas if it was a Republican president, they easily would have been impeached and removed from office. We didn't have to deal with, with that. And we saw with Trump when there were not one but two impeachment trials over complete nonsense that went nowhere while he was in office. So it's funny to me how it's like, it seems like one side implicitly understands that the rule of law is a selective thing. And they're willing to say it when it's in regards to minorities and policing and other things like that. They say that the application of law is unequal. They say that there's bias in policing and prosecution and terms and jailing. They say that certain crimes are affected more than others. So when they say who they are, believe them. Versus, I feel like a lot of people on the right have this sort of fantasy idea that it all shakes out in the end, and our system is even and equal, and everybody gets the same treatment no matter who you are. Like, and unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, that's not the case.
Right.
And a very easy way to say that is like DUI law. You can pay this much for an attorney who can puncture the charges, or you can just let the system take advantage of you and be in a very negative outcome for you. Not necessarily the system, but for you. And so I think that that's kind of, this is waking up a lot of people on the right to the conception that, the application of the rule of law is not necessarily equal. And I have to say, I think a lot of normal voters on the right get that. They understand from small local politics that there is corruption, that there are people who get better treatment than others, that everyone has a story of being screwed by somebody, whether it's a medical insurer or a hospital or a car accident or a work situation, so on and so forth. But I think that there's a perspective of the right that believes it's like the question of like, how would you feel if you didn't eat breakfast this morning? Well, what are you talking about? I ate breakfast this morning. Versus the answer is, you're hungry. I think a lot of the right is like, well, how would you feel if you were persecuted by your political enemies? Well, I paid my taxes. I follow the law. I'm not being persecuted by my political enemies. When it's like, no, you would feel like you were unjustly accused of a crime and prosecuted as such. So I think that there is that sort of counterfactual that's being punctured on the right.
Punctured.
In this discussion, there's a lot of people on the right, I think, that are blind. And I think that these are the same voters who voted for Biden this election, thinking it would be a return to our norms, when really it comes down to, I just didn't want to hear about this Trump nonsense anymore, and now they're hearing about it 10 times as much. So because of Biden and his administration. Right. Now, if he was smart, I think that Biden would have directed his administration, don't touch him, don't discuss him, pretend like he doesn't exist, and he will go away. I think that they think that it's a good fundraising tactic, so they like to play with him, and then he gets upset, and they get upset, and then everybody raises money for each other. But that's kind of the situation as it's going now. Yeah, and I had other things to say, but I'll leave it at that. So the other two sort of spin-offs from this is the fact that the two lawyers that were not named but alluded to in the indictment have quit. Dead. Okay. So Trump has no legal counsel right now. There was one. But he still has a lawyer who is managing the New York case, and he said that there's a new firm and some new people coming this next week. But the one guy's name was Jim Trusty. You have a lawyer named Jim Trusty. But the point is that's what Sarah said. Is she said he says that he has other representation coming, but she said that's just political speak for we haven't hired anyone yet because no one will represent us. Well, I've heard that there's difficulties with that, but I mean, unfortunately, because apparently they have gone. People in the know have said that he's gone to multiple firms, and they've all said no. Well, I was watching MSNBC a clip of that Erin Burnett thing, or is she on CNN? I don't know. Wherever Erin Burnett is, it's one of those networks, and she had a guest on who's a famous criminal defense lawyer in Miami who specializes in this kind of stuff and has worked in that district before, knows all the judges and everything. And she asked him, would you consider, have you been asked to represent Trump, would you consider? And he gave an answer saying, I can't speak to that, but it was kind of a non-answer answer of basically we're working out the financial details of it. So it wouldn't surprise me if him or a couple of other people, eventually step in. He was the one talking about how the venue choice of the district in Miami was a huge mistake for the Justice Department because at D.C. you get the worry of a Miami jury and the judge selection, which is at random for that particular district, landed on a Trump-appointed judge who's the one who appointed the special master to overlook the documents being reviewed, being sent from our office. So you have somebody who I guess could be considered, quote, sympathetic. They were like, the lawyer was like, people don't get chances like this in the criminal justice system. Because it was like a 1 out of 32 chance it landed in this jurisdiction, and then a 1 out of 3 chance that it landed with this judge. Right. So Trump is very lucky in this position that he's not facing a hostile jury and he's not facing a hostile judge necessarily. True. So,
And last thing is the political ramifications of this. So apparently Alan Dershowitz was on Fox News and said that, if things proceed in the direction in which they are, being that Trump is the favorite to be the nominee, if he were to win, and if he were to be actually convicted of something and put in jail, he could technically... nowhere in the Constitution does it say that a president cannot serve from behind bars.
Could he pardon himself?
I would imagine. But I just think that that's bonkers town.
Well, Maddow said that maybe it would be, to Chris Hayes, said maybe it'd be smart for the Justice Department to say, look, we'll prosecute you for these crimes, or you agree to resign from the race. That's your option. That they cut a deal. Like, look, we'll drop this. Which would give Trump more credence to, look, it's not me they're after, it's you. I'm just in the way.
All right.
So that's what's being discussed among those circles as a possibility.
And then a few of the other Republican nominees are being, in my opinion, very smart and being very sympathetic to Trump, saying that this is not fair.
Right.
And that it's a banana republic, that kind of bullshit.
That's a store.
But they're being very...
This is such an anthropology.
They're being very smart about it because they know that they need those voters who love Trump if something were to happen where he would drop out.
They're all smart except for Christie, who's like, put me on the debate stage, and I hope that stage is reinforced. And Asa Hutchinson, who's like, well, I mean, I guess he could have been innocent earlier, but now anyone being accused of these crimes should not, be running. Which everyone responded the same way. Who, so.
Well, we'll make this one short because there's one other topic you wanted to talk about, which was the Tesla.
Oh well, let's throw this in. So just like a fun little news aside, Tesla's been battling the North American Dealers Association of car dealers in every state because in many states there were laws on the books that said you cannot purchase a new motor vehicle unless you purchased it through an automobile dealer.
Right.
And Tesla has a model where you buy directly from the manufacturer. And it saves a lot of money. There's no middleman. There's a set price. There's no negotiation. You can even order it online, and it just comes, So, in some states, the concept of the Tesla store is illegal, and one of those is New York. So Tesla said, all right, there's a big demand for our cars in New York. We're going to set up a dealership on the Oneida Indian tribal land with chargers and everything like this. We can sell direct from there because the tribal land is not subject to the New York State jurisdiction about dealers.
And they cut a deal with the tribe.
And the tribe gets a cut. Everyone wins. So I thought that was a really fun workaround because it works.
Well, I mean, it's just like how the casinos work.
Right.
I mean...
Gambling's illegal except on the reservation.
Right. So in New Mexico, gambling is illegal except on tribal lands.
On the res.
They, they keep those casinos spotless, and they're put on the board and stuff, but only as like figureheads. So the big the CEOs and the bigwigs of the casino, do the everyday stuff,
right?
And then they have like one or two of the tribal members on their board who just sit there and go, "Yay,
yay! I can buy another house. Great." I hope that that's what Trump should do. Trump should run for president from the res. And then they can't touch him. There's no extradition. Anyway.
But no, it's extremely smart. It's worked for, what? I was going to say centuries. Decades, at least.
It's worked for centuries.
It's worked for decades with casinos, so why not car dealerships, too?
Not?
Was there something else you wanted to talk about?
No, that was the only other topic. I like that this is it's our emergency... appendix to the emergency previous podcast. We're in a never-ending state of emergency, like the pride flag at the White House.
And this episode will probably go out the same day as our last one.
Yeah, I think we should put them out together
because this is short and they go right.
The other episode's for your drive to work. This is for your drive home or to lunch or whatever. Anyway.
So while you're eating lunch or driving home, go fuck yourself.